How timid was Han Li after breaking through to the Nascent Soul stage? Completely different from his early Nascent Soul stage. It's common knowledge that the cultivation world is a dog-eat-dog world. The higher the cultivation level, the more domineering one's actions tend to be. However, this ironclad rule showed a fascinating reversal in Han Li's case. Looking at his long path, a stark contrast is evident. The more ostentatious and domineering he was in the Nascent Soul stage, the more he concealed his abilities and became cautious after reaching the Nascent Soul stage. This dramatic shift from arrogance to humility, from ostentatious display to step-by-step planning, is not due to weakness, but rather the ultimate survival wisdom born from the arduous path and the pressures of the times. Since condensing his nascent soul, especially reaching the late Nascent Soul stage and becoming the universally acknowledged number one below the Nascent Soul stage, Han Li's style of conduct has undergone a complete transformation. The image of Han the runner, who struggled for resources and constantly yielded, gradually faded, replaced by a ruthless and decisive giant. The oppression, covetousness, and scheming he suffered due to his low cultivation level were all settled by him once he gained sufficient power. Whether directly suppressing and killing, or causing the fall of enemy cultivators in perilous secret realms and ancient lands due to conflicts of interest or the pressure of the situation, Han Li's figure was always closely linked to the loss of high-level cultivators in the human realm. Some cultivators even lamented that after Han Li advanced to the Nascent Soul stage, few Nascent Soul cultivators in the human realm met a peaceful end. Most were directly or indirectly brought to their doom by him. This confidence stemmed from absolute strength. While Han Li, in the late Nascent Soul stage, still couldn't easily kill deity transformation cultivators, his combat power was enough to rival this peak level of the human realm, and even make them feel troubled. He once frankly told Old Demon Who that facing a Nascent Soul cultivator, he was 50% confident of escaping unscathed, 30% likely to perish together, and only 20% at risk of being killed. This assessment clearly demonstrated his confidence. At that time, with his profound cultivation techniques, powerful magic weapons, endless supernatural abilities, and a cautious yet decisive nature, he certainly possessed the capital to roam freely in the mortal realm and manipulate affairs with ease. His actions were naturally high profile, and any offense would usually require a bloody price to settle the matter. However, after Han Li overcame numerous hardships, replenished his spiritual root, cultivated the Yuan magnetic divine light to its peak, and finally crossed that insurmountable chasm to successfully advance to the Nascent Soul stage, his behavior suddenly became more restrained, becoming unusually low-key and even cowardly. The root of this change lay primarily in a harsh reality faced by Nascent Soul cultivators in the mortal realm: every action depletes their lifespan. The spiritual energy of the mortal realm was thin, and its laws were incomplete, making it unable to support the full power of a Nascent Soul cultivator. Every use of supernatural powers exceeding the limits of this realm triggers a backlash from heaven and earth, directly consuming a cultivator's precious lifespan. Although Han Li's lifespan has greatly increased due to his breakthrough in cultivation, it is by no means something to be squandered compared to his ultimate goal of ascending to the spirit realm and the time needed to find and prepare to traverse the perilous spatial nodes. He must use every ounce of his lifespan with the utmost care, like a miser guarding his last penny. At this moment, Han Li's vision is no longer limited to the mortal realm. To him, the mortal realm is like a shallow pond, unable to contain a true dragon. Ascending to the spirit realm and pursuing a higher path has become his sole and urgent goal. Any action that might needlessly consume his lifespan or hinder his ascension plan is considered a risk that must be avoided. Therefore, he proactively conceals his sharpness, shifting his principle from revenge is a must, treasure is a must to avoid fighting if possible. If fighting is unavoidable, restraint is paramount, focusing on repelling or severely injuring, and rarely taking lives. This timidity, or rather, extreme modesty, is reflected in every aspect of his life during the Nascent Soul stage. Extreme tolerance towards lower-level cultivators. Once, on his way to the Five Dragon Sea, Han Li encountered a group of Nascent Soul cultivators exchanging items, seeking information about the route and requesting sea charts. Because he concealed his cultivation level, he was looked down upon and even subtly provoked by several Nascent Soul cultivators. If it weren't for the astute female cultivator who guessed he might be a fellow Nascent Soul senior like Xiong Jili and intervened, a conflict would have been almost inevitable. Even so, facing the quick tongues of these lower-level cultivators, Han Li remained calm and indifferent throughout, showing no intention of arguing or teaching them a lesson. In his eyes, fighting with Nascent Soul cultivators, even if victorious, would only yield a little face or meager resources, while the loss would be precious lifespan, a completely disproportionate trade-off. Restraint when plundering treasures. Even during his nascent soul stage, Han Li would still clash with others when searching for treasures and preparing materials for ascension. However, at this time, his methods were extremely restrained. He often uses relatively low-cost supernatural abilities like the magnetic divine light to intimidate opponents, or even avoids direct combat altogether, relying solely on intimidation to force them to back down. Even when forced to attack, he usually only strikes briefly, injuring the opponent to render them incapable of competing, rarely resorting to the ruthless methods he employed during his nascent soul stage. The Han Li of yesteryear, who fought tooth and nail for treasure and eliminated future threats, seems to have vanished. Hiding his supernatural abilities and magical treasures, when traveling, he no longer readily uses swift-flying magical treasures like the wind and thunder wings, which could potentially disrupt the energy of heaven and earth, instead employing ordinary escape techniques. In combat, unless absolutely necessary, he even keeps his natal magical treasure, the azure bamboo bee cloud sword, well hidden, let alone his powerful, costly secret supernatural abilities. All his actions are guided by the principle of minimizing lifespan loss. Han Li's obsessive caution in preparing for ascension, the devastating news that his fellow nascent soul cultivators, Srong Jili, Hu Laomor, and Feng Laoge, had failed to successfully cross the spatial node and had their life-bound lamps extinguished served as a stark warning to Han Li. This made him deeply hesitant about his ascension, resolving never to act rashly without complete preparation. He spent considerable time reinforcing the spatial node seal, carefully considering his partners such as his complex relationship with the Ice Phoenix, and searching far and wide for top-tier defensive magic treasures to cope with spatial storms. Every step was meticulously planned and executed, striving for absolute certainty. Han Li's apparent caution was not cowardice, but a strategic retreat based on a profound understanding of his own situation, the rules of heaven and earth, and his ultimate goal. When environmental constraints lifespan depletion became more fatal than most direct threats other cultivators, the optimal strategy was no longer to display force and clear immediate obstacles, but to preserve core strength lifespan and condition to face the grandest and most difficult challenge ascension to the spirit realm. The fall of pioneers like Srong Jili made him acutely aware that in the human realm, he had reached a lonely peak, with no more like-minded companions and no room for redemption after making mistakes. Every unnecessary struggle could be the final straw that breaks the camel's back, jeopardizing his chances of ascension. Therefore, he had to be cowardly, to push his forbearance to the extreme, and to weave calculations into every detail. This transformation precisely highlights the core and most relatable trait of Han Li's character, absolute rationality and an unwavering dedication to the path of immortality. For his ultimate goal, he could endure temporary humiliation, conceal his sharpness, and make choices of forbearance that defied the conventional, swift revenge of cultivation. His arrogance and humility are both outward manifestations of the same core at different stages and under different constraints, that is, all his actions serve the fundamental purpose of survival and advancement. His arrogance in the nascent soul stage is a release of past repression after achieving sufficient strength, a fight for fair rules, and a necessary means to clear obstacles in his path. The low profile of the nascent soul stage is a more advanced and profound survival strategy when facing higher levels and harsher rules, the backlash from heaven and earth, the perils of ascension. From breaking the deadlock with force to surviving by strategy, Han Laomor's cowardice is precisely the best proof of his increasingly resilient Tao heart, his increasingly profound thoughts, and his willingness to endure and lie low in pursuit of the great Tao. This is also why countless Taoists both love and admire him. He is not a hero in the traditional sense of being domineering and outwardly powerful, but a true sage who has taken the philosophy of realistic survival to the extreme, taking each step carefully on the thorny path of the great Tao, and ultimately carving out his own niche.